This video is about the cross and the torture stake. It's really for Jehovah's Witnesses or anybody that wants a good argument against the belief that Jesus Christ could have died on a torture stake. Usually arguments used are from the Bible, but this doesn't take that approach. And the reason for that is because it's looking more at scientific evidence and medical evidence that proves that it would have been impossible for Jesus to have died on a torture stake. The first thing that needs to be clarified is when you speak, you exhale. Okay, and if you exhale, obviously you're breathing, so it goes without saying you must be able to breathe in order to speak. Another point we need to make is that Jesus Christ, when he was hanging and being impaled, he definitely spoke. For instance, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do." So, and other comments. So we know Jesus definitely spoke. So those are facts that cannot be argued. Now, for evidence, I hated to do this, but I found in research that the Nazis used to test different types of crucifixions, and they took very extensive notes on how the persons died, how long it took, and so forth. One of the methods they used was upright torture stake, and first they tried nailing the hands together over the head, but they would let the feet dangle. In that circumstance, a person could breathe. However, he could only last maybe an hour, and then he was dead. It's good to keep in mind Jesus was impaled 6 hours. I think it was 6 hours. So the scientific evidence just isn't there that he lasted how do I want to say this? The evidence isn't there with the torture stake that it was possible for him to last 6 hours. If someone wants to be anal about it and say that he was perfect and he could last that much longer and take that much longer to die, well, that's fine. We still have another argument for that. But let's look at the way that Jehovah's Witnesses say he died. They say that nails were hammered through the hands above the head and then the feet below. So it's interesting to note that the Nazis documented that prisoners, when they were executed in this fashion, could not breathe, and they died of suffocation. It took about 10 minutes. You can't breathe, you die. Simple as that. I don't care if you're perfect, how perfect you are. You're dead, you're dead. So apparently the Jehovah would have to believe that, I guess I should say Jehovah's Witness, that's disrespectful. Anyway, that the Jehovah's Witness believed that Jesus, I guess he held his breath for 6 hours. Well, more power to him. That's amazing, I guess. Another thing, being impaled in this way, because a person cannot breathe, and the reason again they cannot breathe is because, unlike when their feet are free and they could pull themselves, if you have your hands up here, you could pull yourself up and down to inhale and exhale, even though it'd be very painful. Once the legs are hammered underneath, then there's no way. They found that the muscles used for breathing, inhaling and exhaling, the diaphragm and the muscles involved, they cannot work correctly, and basically it's physically impossible to breathe. Because it's physically impossible to breathe, it's impossible to speak, because as we mentioned before, when you talk, you're exhaling. So that's really the most damning thing against the torture stake, is the fact that Jesus did speak. Therefore, there's no scientific way possible that he could have died on a torture stake. Incidentally, another thing that's pretty a strong argument also is the fact that the whole idea of crucifixion was to let the person suffer for even days on end in order to deter would-be criminals from breaking Roman laws and endangering the empire. Could you imagine stringing out hundreds, even thousands of criminals on torture stakes and having them suffocate to death in 10 minutes? Obviously, this never happened. I mean, there was some usage of the torture stake, but it wasn't as much to put fear into people, because for that they had the cross. And it's obvious, history shows that the cross was used extensively as well. Jehovah's Witnesses, they may want to argue no. The picture they show, and this has been brought out by other ex-witnesses, but the picture they bring out of Jesus on a torture stake, if you flip the page, they don't show the book, but the next page shows a cross. They just conveniently they leave that part out and don't mention it. But anybody can look through history and on the internet, and it's clear that people did die on crosses. Now, going to the cross, is there a problem with speaking and breathing? The Nazis found that when a person would want to inhale, he would push on his feet being hammered, and then the hands apart. His weight would rest on his feet so that he could inhale. What caused so much pain was the nails were hammered through the ankle where there were nerve bundles. Those nerve bundles created massive spasms throughout the body every time weight was put on it, or all the weight, in order to inhale. And if you've ever had a leg cramp, I know how debilitating those can be. I mean, it seems like your whole body just freezes up. That is nothing compared to this, the cross and the spasms. That's why they say the crucifixion was, in ancient times, was the worst way someone could be put to death. Anyway, when the person went to exhale, and this is when Jesus would have had to be speaking, the weight comes off. He shifts some weight off of the feet and to the hands. And at that point, in order to exhale, you're pushing up on the hands, and what that causes is spasms in the hands, because the nails are driven through the wrists, and the same kind of nerve bundle pain is designed by the Romans that way. Hold on, this screen went blank for a second. Anyway, so that the pain was again just convulsing and cramps, and so every time a person would inhale, they'd get the cramps, exhale, they would get them, and it just kept going on and on and on, and just horrific. I mean, can't imagine how horrific. It's hard to believe that the Romans would have thrown that aside and used torture stakes all the time instead. I mean, and history shows that never happened anyway. So that's pretty much it. I think that's a very powerful argument. There is no rebuttal of that. It's obvious because they believe Jesus died on a torture stake. He would have been unable to breathe, therefore he would have been unable to exhale, and he would have been unable to speak. Therefore, since he did speak on the crucifixion, then he definitely did not die on a torture stake. He died on a cross. So I hope this helps you. I basically thought this up myself. Of course, the research was there. I learned these, these scientific and medical facts by doing research, but I put it all together, and I had never heard that argument, and it kind of surprised me. Why? That's the best argument I think you have against the cross, because you can't play scriptural ping pong with that, because you're not dealing with the Bible. They throw a verse at you, you try to explain that to them. I mean, yes, there's a correct way of interpreting and explaining that, but that can come later. I mean, here you have at your disposal a way of just shutting it down once and for all. And the witness being closed-minded will probably, he'll know that you made your point, and he'll know that you're right, even though he may not admit it. It's in his head. He'll never forget that. And who knows? I had thoughts going on in my head for years, things that bothered me, and I never did. I never could dismiss them. And so, you never know. The seed could be planted. Thank you for your time. Bye now.